Hello, guys. Welcome. Good morning, good evening, good night, wherever you are. Welcome to Lake State Media. My name is Abraham Medit Majak. I'm one of the Lake State Media hosts. For those of you who are watching in Facebook and YouTube and Clubhouse, you guys are listening. Please start sharing this video. This is very important. I have my guests, usually our brother Edmund Yakani is with me in the studio. Today is regarding about, as we all know, about the conflict going on in Malakal in IDP camp. So today we want to do updating about what is going on and what happening. Seeing the incident break out in IDP camp in Malakal between two communities, between Shulok and Nuer. So Edmund Yakan is here to update us the new update. So what has been done, how the government and United Nations, what they are doing to prevent further violence in the region. So Edmund, I would like to welcome you, my brother. Thank you. You always available for us when we call you to give us what's going on the ground. You are our eye, our ear. So we are rely on you. We don't take your time for granted. We always honor and public to have you in our media platform to give South Sudanese a full update about what happened in our country. So welcome, brother. Give us a little briefment, and then we will dive into our conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First, I'd like to say thanks for Lex Media for hosting me, as usual. And also, I would like to say, I would like to convey my greetings to your audience who are watching or who are listening to us wherever they are, whatever time they're in. I'd like to say thanks. And I hope that I will try to use my voice as a voice of the voiceless to raise concerns and to raise really a neutral and objective calls for the safety of our own brothers and sisters in Upper Nile region, and in particular in Malakal IDPs Camp, but also among the communities. And of course, condolence for those who lost their lives in the last crisis. But of course, as I said, our citizens with a different ethnic identity, they're not enemies of each other, but some people somewhere created a violence to really wage a deadly war among our communities. But I hope that we'll try our level best, being here on the ground, and of course, being having a practical field people in Malakal as a state and in Malakal town, we have credible information. So whatever I say with the people is something I can say credibly, primarily reality. Normally is bitter, but I want to stick on the realities, and I want to stick on the peaceful coexistence of our communities with a different identity in Upper Nile State and in Malakal IDPs Camp in particular.
Okay, I think it sounds like we're having a network breaking down there at Edmund at end. So Edmund, try to see your network connection. It seems like we cannot hear you. Edmund, can you hear me? Edmund, can you hear me? So let us wait until we fix the network.
Jilo wana tona dol tona nyel DJ Dingarang jagda lo diana baping.
Clear?
Okay, now can you hear me? You froze. We cannot hear you.
I can hear you. I can hear you clear.
Okay, good. So now we are back. So yes,
I can hear you clearly.
Okay, great. So Edmund, let us go into like a couple weeks ago, or less than 3 weeks ago, there was a violent breakout in IDP camp between two communities between Shuluk and Nuer, and there are the loss of life, women and children. So what happened? I hear in the news, I hear the information. I don't know if these are correct. That's why I brought you in today, so you can give us a correct information. I heard that there is a mobilization going on in White Army, try to attack the IDP camp in Malakal. So is that true? What happened? If it is true, what happened? What is how that thing going? Can you give us the update about that issues? So thank you.
Thank you very much. You can hear me very well, I hope.
Yes. So
yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much. As I said in the beginning, is that we have our own monitors on the ground that belong to our organization. I can't disclose them for their own safety and security, so we have a primary hand information. Yes, the element of mobilization of White Army were being seen across the board in Upper Nile and in some parts, even some cross from the side of Jongole. So this happened for the last almost 4 days, right from 24th coming forward. And of course, whether we're asking ourselves whether that is towards cattle raiding or that's towards revenge attack for response to the incident that happened in Malakal IDPs Camp, which of course we as an organization, we condemn the incident. Malakal IDPs Camp is a human rights violation, and we hope justice and accountability can prevail for that incident. So this mobilization took place like 2 days. So on 28th, which is the day before yesterday, a quite number of White Army, the number is big, the number is abnormal, passed through the site of Doleb and reached to an area called Warjob, and they attacked a cattle camp. So in the war of the cattle camp, they were repelled. But already rumors reached Malakal town that they are coming to revenge on the incident that happened in Malakal town. And among the rumors was that the two prophets, Makwach and the other prophet of the White Army, were also part and parcel of those who mobilized the numbers. So this raised an alarm. Of course, for us as an organization, we said this information with reliable sources. Later on, an intervention was designed, and we saw SSPDF were deployed to prevent them further coming towards the area of Sherikat. Sherikat is 5 kilometers from Malakal town. So they were prevented not to go beyond Sherikat, but their presence already in the side of Sherikat was witnessed. So there's a likelihood that that particular mobilization may end up in supporting a revenge attack towards the incident which happened in Malakal town. But enough that the leadership of Malakal town responded, specifically the army, the SSPDF responded by taking positions. And I think that have sent a signal to the white army that the army are prepared to confront them whenever they want to attempt to do any revenge attack in Malakal. And of course, UN agencies are also alert, and UNIMIS was alert. So there was already a continuous exchange of information between different sources of decision-making within the government and outside the government, in UN family, in New York and everywhere. There's a sort of like exchange of continuous information. Something is going to happen, please respond. So it became a clear rumors that was able, based on the rumors, they were able to launch a preventive response, and specifically the SSPDF responded and they deployed, and that also was able to deter. But if you hear from the communities, the voice of the communities, actually they feel revenge attack is going to happen, and even people in Malakal town, some of them ran away. I made a statement, public statement, of raising an alarm of a looming revenge attack, a deadly revenge attack. But the Honorable Governor of Upper Nile State dismissed this. He called it as a rumors. He called it as something not real. Malakal town is peaceful, but the panic, the spirit of panic is there. I know truth is bitter, and I know sometimes political leaders, it's not easy for them to accept the reality. So sometimes they want to cover the reality because it challenged their leadership. But that is what has happened. That the rumors that are coming, that White Army is massively mobilized at numbers of around 2,000 to wage an attack, a revenge attack to Malakal, is very high, and that has caused panic within the public, within the citizens, and to become a talk. But good enough is that the authority under the leadership of the governor was able to deploy the SSPDF, and we feel the deployment of the SSPDF to a site of preventive measures have sent a signal to those youth who have been mobilized among the White Army, and they were unable to proceed. So you can see indicators of a growing tension in Ayat company, which I say is 5 kilometers. You can see clearly that there's a growing friction and tension, and our early warning shows that there's a growing tension. But also we have seen the Agwelek sort of like preparing themselves to respond if there's any revenge attack. So you can see a movement also within the Agwelek in terms of rumors that, oh, these guys are coming, let's prepare, let's see if anything happen, we're going to respond. So those particular practice was happening. For 27, actually right from 27, 28 is where the incident happened of the cattle raiding in Wadok area. And then later on we proceed to 29th, which is today. At least today the situation is calm, prevention is there. But of course, when we raise the alarm of questioning the political leadership at national level, state level, to ensure that safety and protection of civilians in Malakal IDPs, regardless of their ethnicity, should be taken as a priority, and also calling upon UNMIS to take the protection of civilians in the IDPs camps and in other parts of Malakal to be taken serious. And also we have raised a concern that we are worried that there's a chance in some parts of Malakal town and the IDPs camp may end up as a site of proxy war between the White Army and the Agwelek forces, because we have seen the level of flow of arms to the hands of the civilians when the incident happened in Malakal IDPs camp. So we are a bit disturbed that if we don't be proactively in pronouncing risk of a potential deadly violence that may happen following up the incident of the Malakal IDPs camp, we feel like silence is not an option. The best way is to speak out to save the lives of our own citizens. And of course, we are aware that we have these, what I can say, a deadly and dirty, wishful politicians and elites that are provoking the situation to take a violent trend. And this can be demonstrated by the level of the hate speech and hostile propaganda in the social media, and by the continuous sharing of either it's a fake information. So we know we have seen so many fake information papers been flying around. Some of them are claiming the Nuers are meeting, they're trying to plan, and some of these papers are real fake. They're not really Nuer meeting, but of course they've been created by individuals who want to portray a tension to mounted between our two lovely communities of Chuluk and Nuer, which is not their intention, which is not their policy. But some people just want to take any slight isolated incidents. They want to use it for generating a violence between the two communities. And this is what Governor was saying, is that the incident of the cattle raiding, it was an isolated incident. But we feel also that incident, it have a link with people mobilizing to sort of like carry out a revenge attack. So the rumors were there, the rumors were high, and of course these rumors were able to prevent and were able to see a calm among the citizens in Malakal town today. But still, the chances of a likelihood of revenge attack is very high if we undermine. We should not undermine. And I think both the government and enemies need to continuously remain in alert. They need to continuously remain prepared and need to continuously ensure that they watch out any revenge attack from any other of the warring parties that fought in Malakal IDPs camps. But if you see the common people in Malakal IDPs camp, what I can convey to your audience is that the common citizens that have no political interest, that have no motives behind the violence, are peaceful coexisting. And they're saying we need to coexist peacefully. But unfortunately, they are subject to manipulation of the politician and manipulation by some of us who are elites, who are in the social media, provoking hate speech to high level and hostile propaganda and even character assassinations and sort of like a lot of things that may not mount it as a good things, all may mount it as a factors that are for fueling violence to happen between the two communities. But otherwise, our common citizens in the camp, they are peacefully coexisting and they love to live in peace without any manipulation. But of course, some of us who are elites, we're manipulating them for our personal interest. And I think this is where the question of political leadership that need to hold individuals who are within the system accountable, who like to manipulate things and want to generate violence among our communities, and some of us who are in diaspora and within the country who are using social media, we need to really take responsibility. Why should we provoke hate speech that claims lives of our own citizens and their properties? If we wish to smile when we see our citizens dead, then we should continue provoking hate speech and hostile propaganda in social media. And one thing that I would like also to repeat is that right now we have dedicated a close social media monitoring and watchdog to collect all those messages of hate speech and hostile propaganda in virtual media and do proper research and identify identity. Even if some people use pseudonym, we'll do our level base of research and reaching out. And of course, good enough, close to us in Nairobi, we have a Facebook office, so we can keep on collecting data and documenting in terms of later on in the future, if there's a demand for accountability and justice, some evidence that are online, we need to be saved and need to be reserved for producing evidence that some people were involved in using hate speech. And remember, I'd like to tell the audience, people should remember Rwanda. What happened in Rwanda is that some of those hate speech messages were documented and they were able to be used in the court of law. So some people who are using the hate speech and hostile propaganda should be careful and should be ready, that they are ready to stand in the court of law to respond to the hate speech. And we are also tracking all those messages. When was it released and how is it associated with any violence that may happen before, or how does that message reflect somebody who supported violence that happened before? So for me, we are watching, we are documenting the use of social media for provoking violence among our communities. But also we are watching at those politicians that like to issue reckless statements, and their statements is to undermine the call for stability and peace among our leaders. We are also watching at them, and we are aware of those who are fueling, whether through making public events or supporting flow of arms and ammunition to the hand of our civilians. But of course, you are aware of the event which was organized in Juba for the king and then the return of Johnson Oloy. And you can see the hardcore issues of Upper Nile crisis is the question of land governance and land ownership. And almost like everything is centered towards the question of land, who owns the land and who are the real responsible for the lands, and how can the land governance be sorted out between the rival over the ethnic control of Upper Nile as a capital of Malakal as a capital of Upper Nile state. So I think the issue of the land is very clear among the three ethnic groups in Upper Nile state, and in particular in the ownership of Malakal town between the Shuluk, the Nuer, and the Dinka. And of course, history can prove, but we have people now who are manipulating history for their own personal gain. I don't know why. And their manipulation is part and parcel of triggers that have generated this continuous violence among communities in Upper Nile and particularly around Malakal town. And we have seen this, as I said, I repeat myself several times, since the time of the CPA when Bashir was entering the stadium. It's the same reasons why today we have incidents in Malakal IDPs Camp. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brother Edwin. Before I go to the Johnson Wolin speech and regarding about the land ownership, I will reserve that a little bit. Let me ask you very quick about regarding IDP. Right now in IDP camp, when the war break out, the two communities were staying together in IDP camp. So after the war break out, so I don't know, right now, are the two communities still living together in the IDP camp, or some of the group left the IDP, like Nuer community? Did they leave? Because I heard that the Nuer left the IDP camp, or they still stay together in IDP camp. Edmund? Okay, he's frozen then. Edmund, can you hear me? Okay. So guys, keep sharing the video. He's having a network issue there, so he will come back. And for those of you in Clubhouse, just bear with me there. So let me wait for him. He's coming back.
We Santo, Malakal Mike, Cholgrangawan, Jupit, Juping Yarul Pandit Shekman Yell, and a Keton Yell, Jillo, Winetona Dol. I think a kick, Gabuka, Devo, Anyalia, dear Kuika, Pingrin, Gemana, yeah, when I jang I didn't maja, Kubo, Makur, Kagaboli, and Kuaita, Tian, Wagarade, Kegela, Geman, when you go, I think a kick, Gabuka.
It's a bit disturbing.
Yeah. So what about now? Are you okay? You good, right?
It's a bit disturbing.
Yes, the net. Yeah, the internet is still a bit up. So my question, if you can hear me, the question that I asked you before is that in IDP camp, are the two communities still living together after the war break out?
Yes. Are you hearing me?
Yes. Go ahead. Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah, the two communities are living together. The two communities are trading together. The two communities interacting together. The two communities are attending social events together. In terms of the common citizens among the two communities, they have no crisis. But also when come time of panic, they panic together. But unfortunately, if you see what is going on in the social media, as if the two communities are totally divided, as if the two communities are not living together. But for those of us who are on the ground, we can see them. And you can see them sharing the same shops, sharing the same space of prayer. They greet each other. But when things break into a risk, they all run together. So for me, that is the challenge to those of us who are using social media for provoking problems. And some of these incidents, and we can talk to them, some of them can tell us, look here, some of these are isolated incidents, but unfortunately, politicians like to politicize it. So for me, it's real. Yes, there are issues of political rivaling over the control of political power in the state, but that should not be to the level that it's claiming the life of our own citizens. So I feel the violence that our communities are experiencing in the IDPs camp is actually imported violence. It's not their own making. It was imposed on them, and they are forced to face that type of violence, while actually it's not their intention to live in violence. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, do you think right now, because the social media is playing a huge role, is when I listen to Clubhouse, it's mostly Clubhouse is one of the social media that South Sudanese are using nowadays more than Facebook. And Clubhouse is like you speaking on the phone. There's no picture, no video, image, so you use your fake name and a fake picture in Clubhouse, and then you just talk whatever you have in your mind. So do you think the conflict in Malakal right now, is it the social media is playing a huge role into this conflict? Because you mentioned that these two communities are living together. Even there's a war break out, I don't think they run together. But is it this social media, people in the diaspora mostly, they are the one who playing this, because telephone call and then they are feeding these people on the ground with their propaganda information that they are not there. So what can be done for social media hate speeches and propaganda that South Sudan are using in the diaspora mostly? What can be done to stop this?
I think what can be done to prevent these diabolic and evil spirits, and some of them, of course, are expressing their own frustration due to their political analysis that they analyze in the situation. And of course, some of their frustration is based on reality that people want to play around with history, people want to change history, and especially on top of history to land ownership. And that has created a frustration that people have no option. The only option is now to wage a hate speech and hostile propaganda to push to an edge of a corner of seeking solutions of what one wish to be a solution. So I think for me, here are the following approaches that need to be done to resolve the social media crisis. One, on the ground, the political leadership need to listen to the citizens, and the political leadership need to allow the freedom of expression to prevail on the ground, because absent freedom of expression has made social media to become an option. Even in Clubhouse, not all of them are diaspora. Some of them are here, within the country. Some of them can be also within the camp. But because the freedom of expression, that you want to express yourself for seeking a durable solution, sometimes is restricted. So number one is political leadership need to take a responsibility to allow people who are on the ground to express themselves freely without any restriction. And if they're proposing a solution, with the political leadership need to take responsibility to respond to those solutions. That's one thing that I would like to say can reduce the social media, because social media is responding to the gap of absence of freedom of expression on the ground. That's one thing I'd like to say. Second thing I'd like to raise is that those who are using social media need to really acquaint themselves with the reality on the ground. And when I say acquaint themselves with the reality on the ground, is also to see, before you release a statement or before you release an argument, did you assess the implications of your statement on the lives of our own innocent citizens who are in the camp? You may be alone in a room, but whatever you say, it impacted on the lives of millions, being it Shuluk, being it Nuer, being it Dinka in Malakal. And some of them are children are supposed to go to school, and you disrupt their schooling, and you have gone very well in the schooling without any disruption. So do you take that responsibility so that before you release a statement in social media, do you ask yourself what will be the implications? Like today, when we are raising an alarm, honorable governor is dismissing it. But tomorrow you come to realize that the reality will happen. Instead of responding to the positive one, but there's a dismissal. Of course, we accept he's a political leader. He is in charge of the state. It's under his leadership. He can dismiss it because of that his leadership is not seen like a weak leadership. But we hope that we speak to the reality and maintain the reality. This is the second. The third thing is that also the social media users have to know that there's a law. And then to know that there are people who are following their actions, documenting them. Tomorrow, they will be answerable before the court of law, because sometimes if you don't test the law, people never respect the law. So we are already documenting, as I said, we're documenting those incidences. And some of those incidents appear in quite a number of reports about the situation in Malakal, and some of the social media platforms were being quoted, certain voices were quoted. Yes, in Clubhouse, you may remain completely unidentified. You can use pseudonym, pseudo identity, you can play around. But at the end of the day, it is the same technology that we can use to search and to dig out and document evidence. That's something I'd like to tell people. May ignore it, but the reality will surface one day, one time, for someone to find himself in a court and his voice has been played for him. Then look at this, your voice that has happened. That's one thing. The fourth one is that the political leadership need to really take the dispute about the political control of power in Upper Nile serious. And they take it serious in terms of having a real dialogue of what is really a durable solution to the political crisis in Upper Nile, and specifically around the ownership of Malakal and the land disputes in Malakal. As the king have said, the king says, solution to Upper Nile crisis is actually a land governance issue. So if we can listen to the voice of the king and we can respond to the call made by the king, and if we respect the king is a king in our African traditional human way of living, then we need to take that serious. And we need to find a solution to that, because playing around with that is actually playing with the lives of people. And remember, in Africa, our identity is defined by the ownership of the land. So I think for me, those are some of the things that we need to take them serious so that we can minimize. But obviously to the social media, for me, is really individuals who take responsibility. I know my brothers and sisters, some of you are in diaspora, you are so frustrated. And some of you have nothing to do apart from monitoring this because you lose that feeling I'm at home. When you hear home is dirty, then you like to issue a statement. But remember that when you issue that statement, what is the consequences on our own lives who are here on the ground? And I know some of them are not in diaspora, some of them are in country even. Some of them are in Juba. And they just can go and claim as if they're from somewhere. Our tracking of our social media voices and messages in virtual media platform, we come to realize some of the users actually are not in diaspora, they're in country. Some of them even are leaders in the government, but because they don't have room of expression, so they go and cover themselves under social media and fabricate all those information and generate all those information. So I'd like to say social media is doing much more harm than finding solution to the crises that are going on between our conflicting ethnic communities in Malakal IDPs Camp. So for me, that's what to be done. Of course, as I say, you have the freedom to use social media platform, but the consequences of your act will not leave you to be free. It will be documented and to be written around you. So for me, the simplest solution to social media is let's take responsibility to use his social media responsibly for promoting peaceful coexistence among our citizens. We should not use social media as an instrument of dividing and fuel deadly violence among our citizens. If we become champions of genocide or planting seeds of genocide through social media, then there's no need to have social media. And that's why for me, ask yourself, is your word a seed for possible genocide and occurrence of crime against humanity and human rights violations, or your word is a word that promotes peaceful coexistence among our people when you're using any platform among the platforms of social media? So for me, that's the responsibility we need to take as South Sudanese, because we need to prove to the world that we are able to sort out our problem in a non-violent way, and we are able to govern ourselves, and we have affiliation to our identity that we struggle to claim an independence, which we say we're Africans. We are not people who have that identity, how people in the world think about, but then that we couldn't govern ourselves, because somehow we're proving Bashir correct that South Sudanese will never govern themselves because they don't have an ideology of nationalism, except they like to protect their ethnic identity. But also it's few among us who like to invest into that narrative by attempting to change history, and change of history create crisis. This the same thing in Malakal today is the same thing in Tombra, as we have known what happened previous in Tombra. I was part and parcel of that. So I'm quite sure it will be the same thing in some parts of the country as we continue to look at it. So for me, it's a responsibility that we need to take to use social media responsibly for promoting peaceful coexistence. So those brothers and sisters who like to use social media for amplifying hate speech, hostile propaganda, character assassination, I would like to appeal to them. Take responsibility, avoid that. That have huge consequences on us. You have seen what Banden Mama Amira was doing when she was taken to the court. She started pleading. And when analysis has now been done in a court of law before Mama Amira, she has to plead. So now she's a bit disciplined among ourselves. We don't hear her anymore. She's in country. So it's a bit disciplined because she faced that the law have documented whatever she have said, those insults. And some of us still are using that. And yes, you may be in Canada, you may be in Australia, you may be in America, you may be somewhere, you are very far. But whatever you say there is claiming life of an innocent child that's supposed to have a future to be running into the bush. Your own statement, subject, innocent, elderly, lactating mother, children to run to the bush and been bitten by mosquitoes and sleep maybe 2 or 3 days without food while you're eating, you're drinking, and you're sending more poisons through your social media. So for me, that's appeal a lot to appeal to people to use social media responsibly.
Thank you, Edmund. Because your network that is really rough. Let me ask you about the leaders, the leader that behind this incident in Malakal. So why the government or the police or even national security don't find these individuals, the leader, the political leaders, so that they can be held accountable if they are behind of violence going on in Malakal? So why the government not taking a step to identify these individuals, these political leaders, so that they can be held accountable? Because there are so many lives has been lost in this country, and they are getting away with the crime because they need it. Why the government is not taking a step on this thing, so that these political leaders that they are behind of this tribal violence in Malakal IDP can be held accountable too. So go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. I hope I'm clear. I just want to confirm the network is okay with you.
Yes, you're good. You're clear now.
You know, I have to, because of the network, I have to be straightforward. You know, most of the people who like to manipulate these isolated incidents and turn them into political issues, unfortunately, this is actually the reality. Unfortunately, most of them are close friends of the head of state. Most of them are close friends of the president. And I think the president needs to really take the decision to punish some of his close allies that are using this dispute. Look at what happened between the Ngok and the Twitch. Most of the people who fabricate are MPs in the national parliament. They are known to the president. And of course, the same thing, what is going on also between in Malakal, between the Nuer and the Shuluk and the Dinka, is most of them who are amplifying these are close friends of the president. So I think for me, it's a high time come that the political leadership of the country need to hold their friends that are champions of deadly violence accountable. Because if you see the names of those who can make a phone call and the phone call can result to a war, they are not far from the center of the power in Juba. They are friends of the center of power in Juba. And there's this question that can political leadership take a moral responsibility, punishing their own close allies who are using violence as a tool of maintaining allegiance? Because otherwise, we're building a culture that people want to maintain allegiance to the leadership of the country by perpetuating violence. What does that mean? That means also the political leadership may be condoning violence. So for me, it's a top leadership of the country to hail their friends that like to perpetuate violence as a ladder to power. And unfortunately, it will become a new trend. And this goes to our colleagues, whether in country or outside country, in the region, who are using hate speech. We are amplifying, we are legitimizing this new political trend in South Sudan where we want to use the death of our own people as a ladder to political power. I will tell this case of IDPs in Malakal. Some people will use it as an opportunity of going to the president. Look here, if I'm appointed as a minister or if I'm appointed as a governor, I will sort out this problem. Now, you wait until when we lost lives of our own citizens. Then you go and, in the name of going to meet the president to find solution, you're going to beg power. This trend is becoming very clear that people are using the death of our own people as a ladder to power. So it's a top political leadership issue in the country that the leadership of His Excellency President need to take a political responsibility to punish those. And I know President have made several statements that he can't condone those politicians because they have self-centered interests. But they're the same people who are close, who are his allies, who tomorrow come to rise, the one who commit atrocity today, tomorrow is appointed somewhere as a leader. Instead of taking them to court to face court of law is a problem. And the judiciary also is compromising. I'll give an example. People like us sometimes want to test the judiciary by going to open a court case. I will tell an example. There's a detention of politicians from Ngok and Twitch. And I'm trying to go around to judiciary to question that decision in the court of law. You come to realize the judiciary is so scared that they can't respond to their mandate as required by the constitution, as required by the establishment. So they pay a lot of allegiance to the political leadership of the day because they feel like if we go at this, and this is what made me to say most of the perpetrators of this violence are close friends of the political leadership in the country. They can't be held accountable. And this is the dilemma we have in. And this is the call that I like to make it, that actually the political leaders of the country need not to condone this violence. And not condone this violence is by punishing those. You can hear voices coming from security institutions saying, look here, this crisis is not a political crisis. It's just people, individuals want to use this for their own gain. You can see people in security saying people are ethnically divided. There's no loyalty because in the intelligence sector, they're getting information of who is doing what. But when you come and sum up who are those players, you can't miss putting them in the line of allies of the political leadership of the country. And that is the hardship. That's why accountability and justice is being compromised because of that. And I think it's high time really for people to take leadership. Even at state level, sometimes some of them are close allies of the governors. You come to those close allies of governors that are perpetuating violence, but governors cannot punish them because it's the same scenario where the head of state is facing. Governors also facing at the level. Sometimes commissioners are facing the same at the levels. So top political leadership at the various levels of the governments need to take responsibility of preventing the use of violence as a political ladder to power.
Thank you very much. Let me move to the next about the land ownership that you mentioned before. Shulu community and the king host event in Juba like a few days ago. I would like to play the video from iRadio so that the speech that General Johnson will give regard about the land issues. Let me play that video and then you can respond to it. Let me see what that video. Okay.
أنا بشكر رئيس الجمهورية جنوب السودان سلفا كير مجاديد عشان قبل لي نجي جوبا ونتكلم مع اخواني. أنا بسلم إنسان أتنبأ يجي نابا رئيس عشان قبل عشان يجي يادر الدعوة عشان يكون معنا يوم الليلة. نظر القارن والناظر الكبار بتكون محفوظ. أنا بسلمكم باسم الله. أنا وكنت جبالي أنا ما خاف من أي حاجة. أنا جيت في إخواني وأنا جيت الرؤساء بتاعي جيت عشان أتكلم معه أنا سلام وسلام من يمكن كان يكون من سنوات إذا كان في تأخير بسيط زي ما هو بتعرفينه في شنو كان ماجي في أراضي ده شنو ده دولة داخل الدولة ليه أنا قلت كلام زي ده؟ أنا ما مدفعين إننا نك ده ما بقول كلام خلاص زي ده يعني ده بقول كلام شيء كنت برا ولا شيء برا تعرف نفسك في دولة عشان إننا قانون داخل مفهوم برانا نانا أصلا لقينا في حكومة جنوب ونبقى في جوبا وأنا في جوبا في مرة في رئيس لازم ناقجوا أشياء خلاني نسي صلاة أنا ما أشيل صلاة كلام توتا ما أشيل صلاة كلام توتا شيل صلاة كلام تعمل صلاة في ملكال كلام يقول لي جالس تعال جوبا عشان هذا يقولوا إيه المشاكل الأصل في ملكال يا وأنا جيت لابد الرئيس لابد سيدو شاب وقابل الناس بتاعه ورئيس سجانة شديد قال جوزن يتعبون تعال أقول مع أخوانك وهي كتوى كينو مع أخوانك شو تنقاد جانو قاد أقول لكم قاد قال أي مدير عسكرية نانا نهيلو وموضوع بأراضي ترسيبه قرن بكرة أراضي شالو ما في دول شال أراضي ما في دول شال أراضي نانا برانا يجرينا ما في دول شال أراضي كان بقول لنا شو هذا كان معنا هنا ساعة رئيس وطلع رئيس الكلام الشهود بقول أراضي تشوف شالو قال جوزن يزود بقول مركال أبطل الناس اللي بينقى فتح كان يجيب مكتوب عشان تبدأ تسجل ما في مكتوب أنا سألت كمان بقول المقاطعة مكان أنا قلت تقول مقاطعة مكان يا غير أنا فوق واحد في برداني قال لي جوزن كلام كله كده جيب مكتوب نانا برانا يجرينا في مركان لقوا ده دمانا شنو بقول قال في واحد كده أرامي ولا الفينا ما رب بقولوا قا ودخوبي وما كان قام من الناس بيلاقوه الناس تشوف أشوفه تاني طبعا يبغى بدخوبي كده في المشهد وجي ما أشوف ذات تشوفكم جار برا صوت جرير براهم وجيتوا هنا صوت أنا أرجع مركان نانا نرجع كيف مركان دام وشنو طال وبعض الموظفين المساكمين قاعد يشوفوا ده غير نمشي أول نمشي يمين وراء بلد وبشوب وصوبات ومدلول أنا كله إذا ما يجي في بالواحد عشان يكون مريض واحد يكون جاي واحد بعدين بنشوف من قاعد كل الناس المركان سو أنا جيت بقلبي كله السلام قال كل في ولد ما سلام تلدوس براو بس لا مجال 64 قبيله بتاع جنوب السودان السنه ده وما يكون في سلام ولا في مجال سلام تقول ده الناس الناقل ما في يوم بساكن يوم بساكن لاقو وناس لسه برجع ياكل في سنوات شكله ما خاف شكله كويس شكله بكل الناس يعتبر نفيذه ما شاكلنا يا ما خاف ما تعبدنا ما قادرين نباسه لا تما يجيب سايات para saya لا يقول ونشوف النفاس الناس تقولوا فدال تهالنا طبعا انا بكلم معاه دي منه كلام الرئيس كلام له كلام له البرنامج الجديد ده شنو ما بينه في مجلس وما بينه في بينه في بسوره هو ما في مركان وبينه منه تمت ماشيين بتاع العالمين كله انا بقول كويس هذا هو تشير ما بيجي نفسه انا ماشي مركان وشيء قالوا في بيوسي شو قالوا في بيوسي في مكانات وبقول شيء وقال في بيوسي شو كده أيرجع نعم ندو بوليس بوليس ملقب يمشي هنا بتاعهم كان في ناربيا يمشي ناربيا كان في أدار يمشي أدار بمشي مع بوليس أي شيء قال في بيوسي نعم ممكن نتكلم لما سيبنا يومنا عشان قال في بيوسي بيوسي ما بقول فيه شو ده شو هو كان شجع في برنامج عشان المواطنين يذهبوا في مناطق سو انا جيت قلت كله عشان نبدا نشتغل مع بعضنا في بيت بام ولا السياسه ما سمعي اللي يشتغل مع السياسيين في جوبا ونحن نختم سلطه اي دول ده بتربيته من اي بوس من المدينه اي وارد ده بتربيته عشان ما نقول المفروض نقول ده كلام كثير انا كلمه مدين تنفيذ ماشي كلام يكلموه وينفذوه لكن كان كلامه كثير رليل ده ما هو بره غير ساكن جنوب السودان كله غير ساكن
I'm not getting your voice. You're muted. Can you unmute yourself?
Yes. Sorry, I was muting. So
I'm not hearing you.
What about now? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So we hear it
yes,
from
I can hear you. Yes.
Okay. We hear it from General Johnson Inman. He said very clear, nobody grabbed Churuk land, okay? And also he's calling out for those in IDP camp to return to their places. Okay, those people in an IDP camp right now in Malakal, he's calling them to return back to their places. And also, this video, this speech from Johnson Willing caused a lot of debate and misunderstanding in social media between South Sudanese community. So, can you give us, can you weigh in? What do you think about Johnson Walling's speech about the land issues in Malakal, and he calling the IDP to go back, especially Shuluk IDP to go back to that that areas. So thank you. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Ilmon. Can you hear me?
First, I'd like to tell you I attended the event in a low profile. I was present in the event. I attended the event. I attended all the speeches. And I said a low profile, back the seat, just because I'm concerned about peace and stability in Upper Nile and Malakal, and specifically among our three ethnic groups and where the Dinka and the Shuluk together. So I went and attended the event. So the video playing, I was there lively, and I can see the reactions among the communities of the Cholo. There are those who cocoon themselves to a corner that his speech is a speech of a bribed person, that he's been given something. Until somebody was describing to me that, no manadok Adam Jakasma, of you Mile. It's very hard for you to insult the Mile and pardon that. There's certain group who goes that angle. There's some groups who say, like, he's telling the truth. And And it's not that. And specifically, when you qualify war is a good thing, so that people respect themselves. You had that statement. People laughed, and if you have few people call me, I said, "Oh, so I think I need to go to war in order to be respected." So I'm just teasing people inside the room. I said, because if that's the benefit of war, then I better go and wage a war so I will be respected and nobody will tamper with my life. So there's a mixed reactions on Olonyi's position. Of course, the issue of land grabbing, you know that where is a dilemma that I'd like to bring to your audience to understand. The dilemma is the changing of identity of Malakal town from being a rural Malakal to now becoming an urban Malakal. Okay? So by then rural, it have its own definition. It's just like Juba. Juba is now a city. And being city is no longer having an ethnic identity. It become an area that every person have a right. This is one. Two, there's still this traditional notion that when you own the seat of the state, you should be always the governor. I don't want to speak with the fear. I can be quoted, and I'm not favoring, and I'm not fearing anybody. Today, ethnic communities that have affiliation to the seat of the state capitals feels like they should be governors forever. They don't want any person from another part of the state to be a governor. That's a tension going on now in Western Equatoria over the element of Futuyo not being a Zande. That's the element going on in Malakal if the governor is not a Shuluk. Sometimes even is an issue that determines my own state, Central Equatoria. If you are not a Barra governor, sometimes you've been undermined. It's almost everywhere. Like in Torit, if you're not a Lotuko, you can't be governor in Torit unless you have to be a Lotuko. So there's that particular notion in the mindset of some even well-educated people, PhD holders, they still have that narrative in mind. That is what is causing havoc. That's what is causing in your hometown, in Lake State. If you're not from Rumbek Central, it's very hard for you to become a governor. People undermine, like, the city is in our own land, so we should be the governors. And it's the same thing with the county commissionership. It's the same thing with the Payam administrators. This notion is a traditional notion and is a notion of not caring anything to do with the national identity. Is an attitude of ethnic identity. People who believe on ethnic centrism are the one impressing this identity because they believe that ethnicity is a central of everything. So that's a dilemma in Malakal. And partly it's a challenge among the Cholo community, who believes like always we must be the governors because Malakal is ours. As a Cholo, going to be there. And unfortunately, some PhD holders are embracing that concept. Our society is a transforming society. We are living in a changing society. And I know if some of us have those still basic education, by then sometimes there's this concept of religion that we're living in a changing society. Change is a fact. If you don't accept change, change will change you. So we still have that attitude that people want to change because they want to define land still in that ethnic identity. That's one thing I'd like to make it very clear. And you can see the contradiction between the speech of Olonyi and the speech of the king. The king was saying solutions to Malakal is a solution to land issues. And Olonyi was saying nobody grabbed the land. So the interpretation of those two messages is contradicting. It's contradicting statements. And that's why for me, we need to reach consensus and compromises. But of course, we can't compromise with history. History has to remain as it is. But the history is not a determiner of a political responsibility, sort of like sharing and distribution. So for me, that's the biggest issue that is affecting the big dilemma in Malakal. And the politicians, their relevance is much more stick and attached to the land disputes. Because otherwise, if they don't respond to land disputes, they have no political legitimacy. When a political ideology is invested on land ownership, and you can't think beyond that, it's a bit problematic. But obviously also there's a reality. If you remember, I'll tell you one thing that about the revitalized peace agreement. When you're negotiating, there's a last paper in the revitalized peace agreement after the trigger of 28 states has made land dispute more difficult. There's an annex, what do you call the IBC findings on historical land disputes. And of course, Upper Nile contained specifically around the land, what do you call the Sherlock land. If you look at it, it's a critical thing. But that is a proposal that we could have been patient in utilizing it than perpetuating violence among our communities. So the interpretation of land disputes in Upper Nile, it have a high political interest. Somebody like Olong will say the land is not grabbed in order to survive. Somebody like King will say, no, this is a land dispute to gain legitimacy. So that's a problem of the land in Malakal. And I think that is the reality that we need to live with it, and we need to find a solution to it so that we can create a consensus on how to go about it. As you said, the speech has brought a mixed reactions in the social media, and I've been following it up. Personally, I've been following, and even I try to really get the reaction of people in Malakal. Like one person in the POC was telling me, people are jubilating, celebrating in Freedom Hall in Juba, and you are dying here with hunger. So the money you have done for the celebration, why don't you send it to us for buying medications? Because we're dying here of food, we are dying of hunger, and you're wasting money there for political event, political speech and reception. So for me, there's a total dilemma, and there's a total irresponsible and immature political engagement over the question related to Upper Nile political crisis. And as you are aware, Upper Nile is also a center. If you don't get stability in Upper Nile, the country can't be stable. But when you have stability in Upper Nile, you can have stability in the country. As last time in our interview, I made it very clear that peace in Malakal is a peace for South Sudan. Stability in Malakal is a stability for South Sudan, because always things triggered from that particular entity. So for me, it's a question of maturity, attitude change, and political discipline that will offer solution. The interpretation of the land in Malakal, it is of interest of certain political class for legitimacy and for relevance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yakani. You know, in social media, when the Johnson William give that speech and the king, some of the chuluk in social media, they came out in their media platform and they criticized the king. And they were saying that king should not involve himself in politics. And also to come to Johnson William to Juba, some of the Shuluk, they are saying that the reason why. Okay, Ilmon, can you hear me, Ilmon? Ilmon, can you hear me? Okay, Ilmon is having a network issues.
Now clear.
Ilmon, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Can you hear me? Yes.
I can hear you.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Okay, the network. Yeah, okay, network playing a little bit. Let us start wrap it up very quick. So, coming to you, Johnson William to Juba, some of the Shuluk political opposition out there, they're saying that, yeah, the peace was signed with between the government and the Agwalek in 2022 in Khartoum. And they're saying that coming to Wolling is that peace agreement. It's not the king. King is not involved into that peace. So some of Sudanese are arguing back, say that the king is behind his influence Johnson Wolling to come to Juba. If he was not king, Johnson Wolling will not come to Juba. So what do you say about that? Do you think without king voice to advise Johnson Wolling to come to Juba, that make Johnson Wolling to come to agree and come to Juba as it is? Or do you think that king is not involved into this this peace between the government and Johnson Wolling? So can you give us what do you think about that?
You know, following the development in Upper Nile, and specifically development around the crisis when the kingdom of Shuluk is under attack and the king was flown out of the kingdom to Juba. Following that, because I've been closely tracking that, I would like to tell you sincerely, it's the influence of the king that made Oloin to come to Juba. And you have seen indicated very clear, Oloin several times after his agreement of the Agwelek with the government, have made several times statements that the president is untrusted. So if you follow those statements, it's very clear he has his own personal reservation. But the influence of the king have made him to come to Juba. That hold water. We should rule out that. And another indicator, if you follow iRadio interview with Malakal, where Malakal said he have told the king directly that, king, sorry, personally, I'll never come to Juba. But my party is a signatory to the revitalized peace agreement. My party have represented in all states level. But personally, I'm not coming to Juba. So that's something that King tried to influence to get Dr. Lamakol to come to Juba, but Lamakol resisted. So it means King is playing a big role of shaping an influence, of restructuring the politics around the kingdom and the center of power in Juba. That holds water. We can't dismiss that. But the question, whether this arrangement of the king will hold water and will bring stability is another thing. Huh? Remember, agreements are signed and agreements are dishonored. So Johnson Orange coming to Juba is not the first time. We hope that he remain in Juba permanently and no more, because there's this tendency of, if you remember this song of Emmanuel Kembe, Alela fi Medina, Bokra fi Gaba, today is the town, tomorrow is the bush. We hope that that song of Emmanuel Kembe will never apply again, because today is the town, tomorrow in the bush. We hope that Emmanuel Kembe prediction will not be proved to be true by the coming of Johnson Orange. So that is the argument. And also that is a political setup around the Chulu kingdom, is how politically
Bear with us, guys. The network is not compliant with the Idmun. Let us wait in. So I will not, for those of you in Clubhouse and Facebook, I will not be bringing people up because the network over there is not good. So this should be my last question. If we finish, then we could end it a day. So until we come back next time, so we can do another agenda.
not so are you hearing me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Sorry, the internet is a bit disturbing us. So for me, it's a question of a political narrative and political direction that the Cholo community need to take under the kingdom and between among them political elites, because also building no political consensus on your identity or your community or your entity interest, it can easily act as a tool of division. People can use your own internal differences to divide and rule you. When you go to political science, the principle of divide and rule is a reality in politics. So the more you are divided, you give chance for somebody to use that division of yours and rule you. So question for me comes is that it's a time of consensus, it's a time of compromise, it's a time of taking responsibility that our direction is this and all of us have to follow this direction. Otherwise, we will compromise with our interests if we have a different position. And you have seen the social media, as you say, a version in opinion. The land grabbed, the land is not grabbed. Malakal is changing its identity from a rural town to an urban town that takes everybody, or is a main hours only. And the governorship of the state should be identified by us, okay, it can be identified by others. And should we take control of the governorship always as our property and not anybody's property? Should we say representation of Upper Nile State in the national government, where we should have the lion's share, not others? So all those political arguments need to find area of an answer with the spirit of nationalism, not with the spirit of ethnic centralism. So for me, that's a challenge. That's a challenge, and that challenge will continue as long as there's no consensus among certain class of politics within the Cholo. The gun class will take dominance of defining the pathway to destiny that people want to go to. And I think Olonya have shown it very clear. Sakila Quest, because for him it's a gun class. Being a gun class, low Sakila Quest, for him, war is good. And that's the language of a gun class, a sincere gun class language. That when you respect me, bullet is the only one to tell you that I'm somebody so important like you. But for how long? Because that bullet is not going free. That bullet is claiming lives, is destroying properties, is destroying livelihood. For how long should we use that culture? Which is a culture of really tampering with loss of human lives and loss of properties. So for me, it's a question of political maturity and political discipline among our political class to take responsibility over that. And that's a mess we have today in Upper Nile State, and specifically between the ethnic divides of Shuluk versus Nuer, Shuluk versus Dinka, or Dinka versus Nuer. So for me, those who claim to be a political class of that particular state need to take responsibility of fixing things, not complicating things. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ilmun. I think as the network is not giving out issues, yes, you are really, the issues are up now, you know. Upper Nile is one of the region that hold South Sudan hostage. And these issues, without, if Upper Nile is not stable, South Sudan will not be in peace. And this is what I mentioned before our last show, last week, that President Salva Kiir should move his office to Malakal, move his office from J1 to Malakal, because if he want South Sudan to be unstable and there was a peace in country, he have to solve the issues in Malakal, one is for all. So when these issues in Malakal have been solved, South Sudan will be in peace. There will not be no more violence. These two regions, Barakazal and Equatoria, these two regions that they don't have these issues. All the problem of South Sudan start in Upper Nile, end in Upper Nile, and that's what the leaders. So, because the root cause of the conflict should need to be dig out where they begin. If you solve the issues, the problem. So that is my message. So I will give you the last, your last word to put in, your last statement there before we close down the show. Thank you.
Thank you, my brother. I think I will continue standing up for protection of civilians in Upper Nile, and I'm ready to respond to any call that comes from you or whoever want to reach out to me over the Malakal. I'm ready to respond. I'm a nationalist. I believe the safety and the security of our own citizens, of their different ethnic identity in Upper Nile state, for me, is a priority. As a nationalist, you should protect a South Sudanese regardless of their ethnic identity and political affiliations. That's always, for me, my standpoint as a human rights defender, that we must defend the rights of our people regardless of their ethnicity. But my final message that I'd like to convey first to the political class of Upper Nile state, that your personal sharp appetite for control of political power by using violence need to be abolished. Abolish using the death of our people as a ladder to power or as an issue of setting a political agenda for marketing a political ideology, which at the end of the day, you want to be a leader. That's the first message I will tell them. And across their political identity, signal to the revitalized agreement or not signatory, hold out or not hold out. That's my message, that please don't use violence. Don't use the death of our people as an agenda for a political motivation. Let's all stand up and challenge the status quo and challenge the center in Juba to take responsibility of minimizing the death of our people. And my message to the center in Juba is that don't be naive of denying the realities. The realities are there. The reality is on the power. As long as you sit in a power, accept the realities and find a solution by the argument between you and others who think that you should use your power responsible to bring peace and stability in Upper Nile state. And that's, for me, really goes to political leadership, whether at national, state, or county level, that take responsibility to justify that your leadership is not at the center of subjecting our lives into death and the citizens' lives of Upper Nile into death. That, for me, is a question to call it president, call it state governor, call it county commissioner. Don't sit in that seat. And as you're sitting, you're watching, our people are losing their lives, and you don't take responsibility in a responsible manner. That's what I'd like to communicate to political leadership, that who are in power, that they should take that responsibility. They should not deny the reality. We must respond to the reality and find solution to the reality. That's what is defined by beauty of leadership. If leadership is now become a center of making citizens losing their lives and properties, that's no longer leadership that we want. Because we want a leadership that makes peace and stability to prevail. We want a leadership that when there's a dispute, they're proactively preventing the loss of lives and properties. That's what I'd like to convey to leadership. And to our brothers and sisters in country, outside country, who are using social media to promote hate speech, hostile propaganda, and character assassination, I would like to tell you that be aware that one day you'll be held accountable. And those who record their videos, and they believe that when they record their videos, they believe their videos is motivating violence to continue ahead. Actually, you're exposing yourself for us to have a live evidence of who you are, and one day we'll bring you. And that's why I'm somebody who's calling for real an investigation into Malakal situation, a fresh investigation to Malakal situation, because I believe that people need to be held accountable in a court of law. No reconciliation, no forgiveness, no reparation. We need to see people standing in a court of law and held accountable by the law. If not today, in future. And the system cannot continue as it is for 100 years In the next 5-10 years, you'll find a different system that will call back to come and answer questions because of your hate speech, of your hostile propaganda, and your character assassination that have contributed to loss of lives of people. So we are in a modern world. Technology play a big role. We are documenting. So please take responsibility whenever you want to use social media. You can use pseudonym. You can use Clubhouse. But it is easy to trace evidence that one day, one time, your identity will be revealed. And that's why I like to say, let's take responsibility of being sincere to ourselves. And let us know. My final communication is that those who sit in political seat and want to manipulate history for their gain, they should know that the manipulation of history is actually subjecting our citizens to go to grave by your own thinking that you want to manipulate history so that our people kill themselves and you remain to be a clever and eloquent. You are not eloquent in manipulating history. You are a devil to our lives, to our properties. And actually, we should stand up to see, not you sitting in a power, because whatever you're doing in manipulating history, if it takes our lives, then there's no need for you to have for having you in a power. That's my message I'd like to convey. Otherwise, I wish every South Sudanese, wherever you are, in whatever time, whatever you're doing, make sure your action is to promote peaceful coexistence among our people, and your action is to kill ethnicity as a political ticket for controlling power. If we don't stop that, that will never keep South Sudan to remain the South Sudan that we want. If the South Sudan we want is for us to have aversion to nationalism, but we should not embrace ethnicity as a center of political ticket to control political power. That's my last message that convey. Let God bless South Sudan, and thanks for Lex Media for hosting me and sharing my opinion with regard to the situation in Upper Nile IDPs camps. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ilmoni Akane. Always give your time to come and give us an update regarding what's going on, and also to our next show will be focused on election on 2024 scheme, and we will invite some of the guests in Juba, those political leaders, so they can come. I have someone just joined in. Wilson, do you have a question? Because I'm about to close down the show.
Yes, I do have a question.
Okay, let's hear it from Wilson. So, Wilson, okay, go ahead and ask your question real quick before we close down the show.
Yeah, I just come late, but that's what you mentioned the last couple of weeks. The issue of Malakal is a big problem. So now you, as an activist on human rights, something, what do you see as a last solution? Because we, the citizens of that state, we have our own way of seeing this is overdue and will continue based on rebellion that has created in Upper Nile, where you will get one tribe have more than 10 different either parties or rebel group. Now, what do you think will be the solution? That's one question. The other question is for this white army things that are coming. Are you aware that they did come and they were dispatched, or it just an alert or rumors that they are coming? That's my question, and then I can say what I know. Thank you.
Okay. Wilson, thank you. Actually, Inmode having a network connection right now. Can you continue to say what you want to say?
Okay. Yeah, Medit, I know you always.
Okay, hang on, it's coming back. Inmode is back. Okay, Inmode, did you get two questions?
Yeah, Abraham, you can repeat for me the questions because I lost him for a while, and I already respond to his questions.
Okay. Wilson, can you repeat your question real quick?
Okay.
Edmund, can you hear him?
Are you hearing me?
Yes, I can hear you, Wilson. I can hear you. Okay. I can hear you, Wilson. Go ahead.
All right. The case of Malakal, as you have been an activist in the human rights, I think you've been observing us on social media the way we talk and all these things. I am glad. I just come lastly, but now the issue of this white army that has been 4 days now, rumors they are coming. Are they really coming, or just some kind of an alert, or there are specific that they were being detected or not. That's the one thing I need to know from you, and then later I will add what statement I have. The second is the solution of Afrinal. I am from that state, and the problem will never go away. This issue, as you talk about politicians using their own tribe, as that problem will not go away because there are some tribe using a rebellion as a level to gain position or gain a power, whether in a national government or a state government. Now, what do you think should be a short-term solution and long-term solution for Africa? Peace. Me, as a citizen of that state, we already have our own solution, but with the government will support it, we don't know. So you, as an activist in human rights something, what do you think will be the solution? Because it's become more very complicated now. When the government, IU, NDM, Shunu, it is very complicated.
William.
Go ahead.
William, don't give up. Don't give up, my brother. Don't give up. This is our nation, and it's not something unique. All countries have undergone this situation, but let's be hopeful that we can offer a solution. I hope that your solution that you didn't mention will be the final solution to Upper Nile. But let me just answer your questions. And I want to answer your questions from a spirit of being a nationalist. I've been in Malakal several times over these issues, and sometimes I go under low profile, undercover, just to acquaint myself. And I can go to the villages. I can go to Lang, Nasser, Baliet. I can move, Ashoda. I can move around because I visited all the counties, and at least I took 5 days in each county of Upper Nile just to acquaint myself, to understand, because as a nationalist, I need to have a primary information. I don't want to be fed with any manipulated information. I want to build my own. So this is my take. First, the White Army mobilization is the reality. Before this incident, I was in Bor. I was in Bor because if you are in Bor, easily you can detect White Army mobilization. I was in Bor, and I went to that bell of Akobo, Denjok, Nyandit. I went to those bells just to acquaint myself. Yes, there are people who are manipulating the use of the White Army to show legitimacy. And that is where immediately when I came out of Bor, the following morning, immediately, my early warning system in Malakal detect a ferry of quite a number of White Army, which actually in Warjog, they had a cattle raiding. But of course, the governor said the cattle raidings are isolated. But the cattle raiding is linked to the mobilization. The mobilization was deterred. I have to be honest with you. The mobilization deterred. I cannot mention to you others that I've led. When I got the information, I have to reach out to New York. I have to reach out to New York, for New York to reach out to UNIMIS, in order to talk to the leadership of UNIMIS, and CITISM have to be moved, and SSPDF have to be moved to deter. So they were deterred. The mobilization was there, they were deterred, and I'm telling you as a primary source, and I'm ready to be held accountable at any forum that somebody want to ask me, and I can show evidence that practically they were deterred because I've been mobilizing. Who is mobilizing them? I come to realize there's a new thing coming up, my brother William, with the White Army. Sometimes we need to blame intellectuals that comes from nowhere that are behind the White Army. No, right now, I would like to say there's a breakdown of leadership control within the White Army population. It's actually now, these is spiritual leaders, the prophets, you can call them. All those prophets are now taking advantage of using the White Army for bribes, for legitimacy, for financial return. Because when they go and raid with the spiritual performance, and you come to realize that when cattle are brought, they have to send certain share. And because the massive population of the White Army are youth who are not gone to school, who doesn't know their future. For them, war is a game. That is, so what is the solution? The solution to the White Army for me, it is for us to approach a developmental project towards that particular grouping, and for us to disconnect young people from listening to the prophets. I saw a video yesterday, somebody sent to me a video of somebody believing on prophecy that has happened maybe 30 or 40 years ago until today. And that has been used. So for me, the White Army mobilization was there, good and likely enough that the government prepared to respond to that, because the White Army is not a Nuer agenda. It's just some people who want to gain out of it. So we can't subject all Nuer to say they're White Army and that's the agenda. It's few individuals. And normally, I don't like this generic conclusion against an identity. This is just some few prophets that want to benefit out of it. That's one thing is real. And the best solution to diffuse this tension is for us to work on how do we stop the culture of the wild army being used by prophets, because perpetrators of violence are also these prophets. That's one thing I'd like to say with regard to the white army that is there, because of absence of big number of livelihood to these young people, and they're going. And this comes also the policy of the government, how to work with young population, how to deter them to be used for this particular purposes that they couldn't believe, they didn't know that their future, they have further future ahead of them. So for me, that's why army issue, from me, getting from me is real. And I said before that I was in Bor to get my primary information. I see the mobilization. You can hear how the prophets are mobilizing and how the prophets are giving them knowledge. And remember, this was the first time. They have been there before. They brought children from there. These children were exchanged with Ramsar. So it's not new thing. But this does not mean that is a whole ethnic group of where the white army comes from, that they support that. No, it's few individuals who are using that for their own benefit. And of course, we have massive population of young people who have nothing, who have no alternative for livelihood except the use of this. So some of them are using these wars, not simply they want to go and fight, just they want to use it to loot. Because they know if they go, they can come back with cattle. Look at what happened in Pibor when they went there. Some of them came with cattle. Doesn't have cattle, they've made head of cattle through looting. So that is one culture that we need to fight as a long-term solution. That's one thing I'd like to propose. Secondly, the culture of the rebellion, it is a political business of the power in Juba. Because if the power in Juba does not reward rebellions with positions, it can't be realistic. But there's this tendency rewarding people who rebel. And it become a common culture, not only in Upper Nile, it's buying all across the country. That the more you rebel, the more you become an opposition to the center in power, the more you are rewarded. And it has become a common culture that is there. So we need to also find a way of how to stop this culture of rewarding things. So if you ask me as an activist, as a human rights defender, what is the short-term solution to Upper Nile right now? The short-term solution is that the center of power in Juba should not reward revolution. That is one. Two, the center in Juba should listen to the voices of the communities on the ground. They should not use people who are very bad, who are center at the generating violence to be rewarded by power. Unfortunately, what I'll say is I'll tell you, among my ranking of states, one of the states, if you want to be a politician through blood, is actually the region of Upper Nile. Go cause a mess, cause a chaos, come. And it's developing in Baragazal between the Twitch and the Ngok. Use of violence. Recently, it's coming to the region of Equatoria. So it becomes a new culture that the center of power will reward you whenever you cause havoc. That needs to be stopped. And that's a short-term approach to it. That for me, I would like to say towards that it's very essential for the sons and daughters of Upper Nile to sit down. The long-term approach is that actually, if we're honest to ourselves, let's leave the sons and daughters of Upper Nile to sit and prescribe solution to their problem on their own, without us dictating them and without us prescribing, because they have cases of intermarriages. But because some people very far from that particular land, very far from particular communities, are using violence as an instrument of ruling them. The concept of divide and rule is one disturbing Upper Nile. And for me, this goes back to sons and daughters of Upper Nile, being Shuluk, being Nuer, being Dinka, to sit and not accept manipulations that force them to violence. Is to say no to violence and to say we need to coexist, because there's no market for land. You can't buy land anywhere. So when we build that particular attitude is where we can find a long-term solution to Upper Nile. Our people are peacefully coexisting, but a minority group, and that's why this idea of Nuer definition of a government, for me, is becoming real, honestly. With a clique of clever people who claim to be a government and they want to manipulate things on the expenses of loss of lives of the majority. So how do we take responsibility and tell them, stop it? That's my response to you, William.
Thank you, Edmund. Wilson, before you come in to put in your last, brother Edmund, a few days ago, I see some of the sources that you come up, talk about the prophecy of Munda. They talk about prophecy. They come up and they said there's another war coming up. That war will be the final. And they are believing this. They made big deal out of it. So
somebody's crying.
Yeah.
Somebody's crying for the prophecy.
So yeah. So those things, our people are real. And you see what happened in that audio. that audio that one of the person want to some of the practice witchcraft. Now it's caused a lot of chaos in the country. The national security and the government. Now that thing is going on. You see, and all of these, and people believe in those. Yeah, Wilson, go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Yakam, for your answer. Very, 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 very good answer with the primary news, with the primary information. Yeah, I agree with you. I talked twice in Malakal today, before yesterday, and yesterday. It's the same news. There were detect, but they came south of Malakal. I believe it's not like the way they used to mobilize themselves in the big number before. I think, like you say, the organization is not really well functioned. So there are a group of people who want to go and loot, and they came. The place called Amitajako, and then there is another place that I heard is called Ayat something place. This is where they came.
It is Ayat Company. It is Ayat Company, which is 5 kilometers out of Malakal town.
Correct. They were detected. Now the goal, they cannot reach the so-called universe. So what will happen, they will end up taking Abagar with Adenka who are surrounding Malakal. That will drag another people into another problem. For your information is right. They came, but it's not like the way they used to come in a number. These people, they be Nasmita Abagar, they didn't give Sarak Abagar, they will not go. Because Unimis now is being militarized. Akuma Javijit, as we heard, Agwelek is there. So they will not make it to go there. But what will happen? They will end up terrorize the citizens who are surrounding, who are not in the city. For this thing, that's why I said before, what is the solution? The solution now that we heard from both Nuer and Denka, we are calling for totally divided Africa into the former 3 colonial of British. The Nuer of Ladjor have to be taken to Nasser, give them a Ladjor. Shuluk had to be taken to Pashoda. And then the Dinka had to be left here with their own side. Maban, they were in according to the old, some of them were part of Balut and Rang. If they want to decide to have their own administration with Koma, it's up to them. This is what I'm telling you as somebody talked to the UN. This state, there is no solution. That's one thing. Another temporal thing. These were the 2 communities left in the camps, the so-called protection, where people are fighting. Why they don't move those protection camps and put it to the heartland of their counties? Let's say, for example, if people of Nasser still need protection and they are in Malakal, UN should move and build the UNIMIS in Nasser. The same thing to Shuluk. UNIMIS needs to be moved out from Malakal for development to go in and build in Pashoda. Okay? I think that will bring a peace. The other UNIMIS in Bor too need to be moved. If there are people there living in Bor who are not belong to Bor and they think they will still want to be UNIMIS, those UNIMIS need to be dismantled. We who live in the West, the so-called UN is the form of another rebellion of rebel that we have in Africa to make business in the Western world. It's not like the UN, will jump into and solve the problem. Like when people were killed in the camp, what they were doing, they were watching somebody burn inside. For Ayahwana, you people of human rights, you need to help Apernal. The issue of Apernal, like I said, now you heard about Mundang things. It's another problem. There are people that believe they are agents to appeal what is prophesied by the Mundang, like the way they talked last week. It is some opposition intellectual that they call themselves lawyers come up with this agenda, saying that there is another war coming in Juba. You see how far we are? What they are doing, they are generating a problem that could kill 1,000 of people with a thing that is not true. But we are totally confused in the social media, especially people like you said, some of us in our side. And that are opposition who are very desperate to change the government. But in order to change the government, they want this government to go through a violence with a number of people to be died in order to come to Sultan. These are my comments. Like I say, Aprenal is very complicated, but our solution as a citizen of that, the short-term solution, divide up the Aprenal into 3, and then the government of South Sudan will put the army in those borders if they see if there are any community is still very aggressive. Because some community claim that if they are touched, no, that's lie. The community using these young people as a way of survival to go and loot another community with no reason. Because I could be killed here in New York or in London, but it does not take my community to go and fight. It will be solved by the government. Okay? But in South Sudan, a community when their own members are killed, this will be like their own daughter is married. They will go and destroy the entire village. Like now, what I knew, because of this development, Bank of South Sudan are going to be open in Malakal now and all these things. For these people who use Malakal as this way to get rich, now it's an opportunity to destroy what little coming. Thank you. I will stop here. But the solution we need, you guys need to advocate in UN. Those UN came. If there are people who still are not safe, they need to be taken to their own county. They need to be asked where you want to be safe. Go to your deep tribe. Leave alone the capital city. Even if we left them to be there, they still invite. Like now, the issue of Malakal now, this so-called unionism, it become a one tribe. 90% or 95% organization workers are one tribe. And then another group of rebels are using that to be their own headquarters, running their Makati Butao against another group. You see how they make complicated? Thank you.
Thank you, Wilson. Thank you. Ilmun. Thank you, Wilson. Ilmun, you can go ahead if you want to add some.
Yeah, just what I want to add to Wilson. What I would like to tell Wilson is that unfortunately, we have a political class that the political legitimacy is determined by the presence of the POCs or the camps. We have this political class that their agenda, their political ideology is actually present in the camps is a question to change of power. But anyway, for me is that yes, I don't say the incumbent system is a system that all of us embrace it, but let us have a constructive way where we can engage in demanding transition of power of a system without claiming the lives of our own innocent citizens and their properties. So, because if politics, I like to give Wilson. Years ago, I was in Bor, in intra-Dinka communities dialogue. Then I was cursing the soil about those who like to use ethnicity as a power. By the way, Abraham and Wilson, I got the same narrative of Olony in Bor, and that's less than 5 days. Somebody stood up and said, no, look here. War is good. War offers opportunity. Why are you cursing us not to fight? We should continue fighting because war is good. And the same narrative that Olony have said, war is good, war brings respect, that make us respect each other. Where is this narrative coming from? This narrative is coming from when people start seeing violence as a best way of expressing their grievances. So for me, that's what I like to reason is that we have a class of people who believe still on POC as an instrument of political agenda. But these particular camps, if we don't handle them, whether the incumbent system or even if opposition come and take over government, if we don't handle these camps very well, these camps will remain a factor of a long-term crisis in South Sudan. Being it in Juba, being it in Bor, being it in Malakal, being it in Bentiu. Because you have a different generation that are coming up on those camps. And when these camps are seen now as a space of livelihood, Wilson, it's very hard to dismantle it because people will resist because they believe they have a shortcut to livelihood by being in that camp. And when camp becomes the center of your livelihood, you start building attitudes that living it, I'm going to miss livelihood. So for me, these are my calls. But for me, still, let's be hopeful that we have opportunity of shaping a better agenda of building the South Sudan that we want. The only thing what we do is that let's not stop dialogue and let freedom of expression be embraced. We can seek one day, one time, we'll find a better solution to our crisis. So I'll advocate that let's not go violent, let's not get frustrated, and why we see violence as an option, let's continue the dialogue, let's continue making sense. We reach to consensus where we can build the South Sudan that we want. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ilmun. I will let you go. So we will stop here. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Wilson. And thank you for our viewers in Facebook.
I think he did not comment with the question you asked about those who were preaching the Mundang property.
Okay. Yeah, Wilson.
Yeah, the prophecy.
Yeah, but you know,
Wilson.
You know, Ilmun.
Wilson.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Ilmun.
Let me go ahead.
Yes.
Let me, Wilson, let me share with you the concept of the Mundeng. Personally, Wilson, I have given myself time to understand the Mundeng. And in 2009, Wilson, I don't know if Wilson, are you getting me?
Yes.
Yes. Wilson, in 2009, I managed to be assigned as a mediator by WLP to resolve intra-Nuer crisis between the Low Nuer and the Jikanyi Nuer. So I was moving with the WLP boats from Nasir. I was taking them to Akobo because there's displaced people in Akobo. So I went from Nasir, Denjok, Wanding, all those areas, Nyandit, and I went to Akobo, and from there, Likwanguli. So the Nuer land, I have taken time to move around it in Upper Nile, in Jongole, in Unity. I have a lengthy time. I have quite a number of Nuer community members who knows that I know them very well. I went up to Gambela. I live in Gambela, where I have no food in Gambela. I have to cross to Ethiopia, to Kwergang, to get food. Either I go to Longochuk up there to look for food. So I've moved around that area. I have this feeling, with due respect and honor to my fellow Nuer community, I have this feeling that the concept of Mundeng, it's been used to manipulate beliefs and to manipulate decision-making and opinion. There are certain class who believe that that narrative gives them the supremacy of determining an opinion in that particular ethnic group. Because myself, I tried to get closer to the Mundeng. And I remember there's a grandson who was in Juba. I've been talking to the grandson. I was predicting the prophecy. But I come to realize that there's a class of individuals who use that. And that thing is not different from our communities. Some of us have this practice in our communities before, but it died off because of education. Like previously, where I'm coming from, there are people who are in charge of what you call hunting. If you don't get their blessings, that you cannot find a bushmeat. Well, uncle, if you go to the bush, you find the bushmeat. But it become a culture that without going to them to get blessing, you look at the bushmeat. So, but now they have died off. We're going to the bush, and with these guns now, but then we're using spears. You cannot find because they're not close or because in a different zone. So for me, what I'd like to say is that the Mundeng, it is another culture that we need to really investigate it, and specifically as intellectuals. As intellectuals, if we still believe on that, it's really messy because remember I was sorting out a problem of a Jikanyi Nuer and Low Nuer over ownership of Wanding. There's a place called Wanding. Wanding is a toyland between the Jikanyi and the Low. And I have to identify who owned Wanding. I reached to the level where chiefs were saying River Pibor, that is running between the Jikanyi and the Nuer, have to be divided into that. If you're fishing, don't fish in this side, you need to fish in that side because Mundeng say, I say, my friend, what's Mundeng link with the fish? If I throw my hook to the river, how does Mundeng know it? So for me, we need to somehow challenge this narrative. And I know sometimes some of my friends who are from the believers on the Mundeng, they completely don't agree with me. They are very harsh. I have come across 3 intellectuals who are masters holders, who believe on that. We argue almost for the whole day. But at least I managed to convince them. They have to admit, Edmond, this is the reality. I say, yeah, the reality is that you stop it. You're amplifying something that causes havoc. I'll give an example, practical example of 2016, Wilson. 2016, because I have early warning system, we have got an early link of 2016. So I organized a workshop in Juba Regency, bringing the IO's spokesperson and the SSPDF spokesperson. But then IO spokesperson was William Tarajas, who later on became a Kitiguan. From Kitiguan, came to Juba, promote himself. I don't know where he is now. He's what SSPDF after Facebook promotion when he break out from Kitiguan. And the judgment then was a deputy to Lul. And when Lul left IO, he came to the government, become a spokesman of the arm of the government, and his deputy is spokesman of the IO. That's in the military side. In the political side, I have Atany from the presidency, and by then I'm supposed to have our brother Gadet, but Gadet was not around. Gadet was in Nairobi. The person who was present was somebody called Nyarji, who represented like a deputy to Gadet. So I brought them together. That's prior to 2016. So Malong came to open the workshop and Malong came to close. When Malong came to open, he came with 4 bodyguards. When he came to close, we came with about 8 bodyguards. Actually, that day is where immediately they want blow up. So I have to keep the IOs with me, William just for almost like 2 days before they could go and join their forces. One came to me and said, no, Mundeng prophesies that you will be safe in that crisis. I look at the guy, I say, my friend, how does Mundeng knows me? And me as an activist is struggling to find a peaceful settlement of our disputes. But they can tell me. So there's this class of people who believe that the spiritual ownership of the knowledge, owning the knowledge, that they can sit in a room, they can craft it and go for a video, set tears, another war is coming. Actually, I wish to see this guy in the video, life history. I'm asking him like, are you happy to see another deadly violence? Somebody is crying. Mundeng say there's another death coming. And if you can't believe, you wait until that day and come. When you come to tell me that what Mundeng say, what I told you is correct, I will be laughing, my friend. So I'm not believing on that narrative, by the way. I believe that's a narrative of a class of individuals who want to manipulate facts for their own personal gain in the name of Mundeng. I wish Mundeng himself should come and tell us, or grandson of Mundeng should come and prophesy that actually from our grandfather this is. But why are you not familiar of that? So there's a class of individuals who are using it for their own good. If it's real, God knows. But for me, as a human being on the earth, I believe we have a spirit of sense that makes sense. There's some sense that make nonsense. So that's my take, Wilson.
Yeah, here is a dangerous part of it, Idamon. The same person that you just mentioned that is crying in the video, like last weekend, I think, or Saturday or Sunday, or Tuesday, I think, this week. One of the media, social media, which is
was
Sunday, right? Sunday. They brought this guy, okay, and opposition. I think they're preaching the word. They are preaching violent about this prophecy of Mundeng book. So they brought this person in and talk about it. He said there's a war coming, and this war, President Zafir will be killed, and all kinds of stuff, you know. And they are believing it. They are preaching, and this is why I bring this one up, because opposition, which is in social media platform, they are using this as a way to fuel more violence in the country. That's why we condemn this. We condemn it in the strong term. We don't need to see another violence coming in South Sudan. Why people are against the peace and then supporting the war? I don't get it. Why people like to see more death in the country instead of save people life? So this individual who have this media platform, I don't want to name the name, but they know themselves. People know them who I'm talking about. There are 2 media platforms, which are opposition media, which they use the bias propaganda, which they anything that harm people of South Sudan or bring war in the country are the only thing that they support. And the only thing they talk about in their media platform. They don't see any good thing going on in the country. Any bad thing, they got that to the word talk about. And that is not the case. So these individuals, the social media platform, we South Sudan need to say, no, that's not the right way. That stop doing that. So people of South Sudan suffer so much. We don't need to see another war coming in. So for God's sake, and I'm praying, their propaganda that said the Mundeng said there's another war, there will be no another war. Okay? We need a sustainable country. We need sustainable South Sudan. We move forward, see development, people live in peace, moving around. That's what we want to see. So thank you. What do you want to add, Wilson? And then I get my contact to.
Yeah, I will add. like you say a lot of things. There are people listen to people, especially young generation. We got another PhD Papa here in America. That he's the one who then say, and the same ethnic group. Now, this guy is still very young. He's 40 something to 50. You see how they're manipulating. Now, I did shy away not to mention people's name, but I will mention people's name because our country cannot be destroyed by people that tomorrow they will look different. Today they are opposition, and then tomorrow they will believe in magician. Teresa, who is a member of the Nats, is the one who bring this young guy who used to cry. This guy is belong to see psychiatrist or psychology. Make it more worse, he's a Denkau. He does not even know all about Mundek. So if you look at it, it's to set up these two tribes again to fight with something that unknown. Because there are total tribes believe in it and another tribe don't believe in it. This is the way I look at it. This Mundek thing, even if you go to book of Douglas Jensen, and he spoken a couple of years in a video in Australia. By then, Mundek does not talk. Since he was born, he came out and talked, say his name, and then he shut up. Another thing, people say that he was born with the 72 women. There are things did not connect here. The guy grew up in his uncle. He never talked to nobody. He don't talk. He closed himself. Now, how do people get his message? Other group jump up here that his message were documented through song. Okay, who sing the song? Who create the song? Who are they? That's another complication. Another one, the interpreted of those songs. Who interpret them now? It depends with people's interest. The songs are not created by Mundek himself. Mundek, by then, he does not talk because he has a tongue problem or his spirit that he got. So there is another dot need more respect. Those who sang the song and how many songs, like the way they were talking on Sunday, mentioning some of the area, the other guy who came and interpreted his song say that Mundek say the leader of the Kir will come to the west of South Sudan, which is specifically either Barghazal or Unity State. Another translation come with the same song, his own interest, Gala. It's going to come from Equatoria.
From the source.
From the source. When you see these type of people, with the community we have or the society we have, that people are confused, they are creating another problem. So the Mundek thing should not be taken seriously. It needs more a start. Mundek himself, when he died, he was put in a house for a couple of days. And when people go and see the house, the guy was not there. Some people say he was burned. Even the one they have the type of pyramid that in Longware, there is nobody there. So there is a lot of things that does not add up. Okay, another thing, he does not sleep with women. His son called Wade, who were killed by British. He's not the him that who he according to another story that he gave his wife the water to pregnant her to have this son. You see how they complicated are this? These are manipulated. Either the tribe need to sit down and put all these dots together, or the South Sudanese themselves. Because you cannot continue killing people with the things that are not in one place. I am an eyewitness when Wunya came up. I was 16 years old in Nas. This guy came from Malakal, the Wunya, misleading, going for over 5,000 white army, Muswan. Girl, there is a past act. In the tree, Mundek left last time in Bilfa. What happened? The guy went there 15 days, he ended up fighting with Ethiopia. He never brought those acts. A lot of people were dead. After he's coming back, he dragged another war, going to Malakal. Then Mundek said that he will capture Malakal and all this, blah, blah. He went to Malakal period to fulfill the prophesy. He went and captured Malakal a couple of hours, and then they were dispatched out. These are the things that I witnessed. One of my friends went to that war. I told him, don't go. This guy called Bull, he never come back. He died. This thing that I see in 1992 in my own eyes. That's the thing that I want to add. It's now been picked up by the opposition, especially the group of the NAS, to bring these two tribes again to fight because they know that majority of them believe in this. Thank you.
Thank you, Wilson. You know, it's telling me now, you know, I will give you guys an example. Incident happened in Kakuma when we were in Kakuma. There was one of the white men came to Kakuma. I don't know if Wilson you were in Kakuma by then. I don't know, in 94 or 95. This guy came. He was a priest. So he came to with his church in Kakuma. So in the evening time, he will host event in the Kakuma town. Everybody in the camp will go there. So it said that he's a healer. He heal people. Any disease that you have, you are lame, you have any disease, you're blind, he can heal you. He said even the blind people he can open their eye. So there was one of the old guy living with us in the group. He said that he's going to go there so that he can be here, so that he can be his eye can be open, so he can see. So we took him there. So when we took him there, and then we took him to the front in the state of this person praying, all kinds of things, say you will see, all kinds of people crying down. And then after the event, so we are leaving, we are going back to our group. So we tell these old guys, so now you can work for yourself. Can you see now? So he cannot see. It's this guy is not even real. So the person didn't see. Okay. So all people who are there, when they come and say, when we have people, did you heal your sickness? They say no. So the same thing. Why I bring this example is because exactly about the prophecy of Munde. And people now believe that, okay, there would be a war, another war coming in, and that war will be the last war in South Sudan, all kind of stuff, you know. So all of this in the Bible say, you know, there will always for prophecy will come. People will call his name. So Jesus Christ sent me, all kinds of stuff in the Bible that are not true. So and we are seeing this, we are witnessing this. Even in Juba, where I heard about a lot of witchcraft that's practiced in the area, all kinds of stuff. So all of this, people who have open mind in instruction, and they need to stay away from all kinds of stuff instead of use those bias thing, and then you say that you want to use it as your political way of mobilize people so that there will be a fight and break out again in the country. So Edmund, you can go ahead and put your last comment on this issue, and then we can close down. Unmute yourself, Edmund.
My final comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, my final comment is thank you very much for this. These are mental, psychological issues that we need to handle to fix things well, because every community have similar, but they have not amplified theirs may be high. But also I like to say to South Sudanese, how much political we're divided. Let's have what we call a constructive approach to our issues. This game, like we're playing football in politics, is not good. It is in football that you need to try all your level best to win. But in politics, that's not the best way. In politics, even if you're not in the system, as long as you can offer an opinion that can influence people in the system to implement, that's how political science is. So my message is that let's take a national responsibility. Let's not manipulate things. Death is bad. There's nobody here who wishes to see more further war in South Sudan. I know war may happen, but some people will claim it because of a prophecy. But I'd like to say, really, honestly, it's a reality. While for Upper Nile, my appeal goes back to our sons and daughters from the different ethnic groups in Upper Nile, that let's opt to resolve our differences in a non-violent way. Violence will never gain anyone. You may sit in the diaspora you promote, but you don't know how much lives of innocent people your action is contributing for them to die and to be buried and to lose their future while they're enjoying yours. So let's act responsibly, and let's act as a nationalist, And let's act with respect of human rights that happen. I know politicians, normally politics is sweet when they invest on differences. Politicians that are failed politicians, they like difference of people to be their political agenda. But right politicians are always those who find solution to people's differences. That's my message. Let's take responsibility. Let's all do our level best in a different way to bring and to build the South Sudan that we want. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Brother Imun Yakani, and also Brother Wilson Tonapur for coming in to weigh in on this critical topic about Upper Nile. I hope, we pray that South Sudan and the people of Upper Nile will come together, and then especially particularly these two communities, Cholok and Nuer, so they can talk. They can talk each other and stop further violence and stop negative propaganda in social media. We hope the peace will come to Upper Nile. And thank you all for turning in those people in Clubhouse and YouTube and Facebook. We will see you next time. Thank you, Immun. Have a wonderful night. God bless you all.
In Juba, Malatori, hey, I'm yo, in Ping William, in Benti, Walla Quaju, hey, wow, in Ping William, in Malakal Walla Pinyaram, in Ping William.